Guys, welcome to another episode of The Pulse. Today's guest, John Edward, and is it fair to define you as a psychic medium? Am I allowed to say that? Like, some people take issue when you say that outright.
No, you could say that. That would be the title. I am a psychic and I am a medium, so therefore I'm a psychic medium. Okay. So yes.
As well as an investigator, which is like, again, intriguing. So we've got a lot to unpack. I have right here with me the newest book, soon to be, I guess, the next bestseller, Chasing Evil. So how'd you get into this? Because you were not one of those people who was born going, okay, I'm a psychic.
Yeah, no, that's not me. My dad was a New York City police officer, a career military guy, who made sure that when my mom and her side of the family had psychics come to the house, which they did a couple times a year, sometimes more than a couple times a year, I was never allowed to be around the subject matter. So that was fine until my parents separated and divorced. And then I lived in the house where they did this, where they would have psychics come and think Tupperware party, take out Tupperware, insert psychic. Okay. And I wound up going to debunk a woman. Her name is Lydia Clark. I went to debunk this woman doing readings, and I said to my family that she wouldn't be able to read for me. Like, I wasn't going to help her the way that I thought they were helping her. And that reading changed my life. She was mind-blowingly accurate with things that there's no way possible she could have known. And then those things started happening. So she got my attention real clear. That put me on my path. Okay. And that's how I started. I kind of felt like my world was turned upside down at 15. And how did this woman know what she knew? And nobody could have told her. Like, I would have had to have told her stuff. So she validated for me the reality that this work existed. Oh, and she told me that I can do it.
She validated for you something that you were not seeking validation for. You actually were trying to prove she's a fraud.
I was actually. Yeah, that was my goal. Like, I was positive that this was all like stuff that I was going to be able to like see through. And what she did is something called psychometry. Psychometry is where you hold on to a person's like object. Mm-hmm. And she took my high school ring and she just leaned into it, closed her eyes, and started talking. She just started giving me information. And I remember really, really clearly, like, thinking that she was crazy because she was so serious. Like, she was taking herself so serious. I was like, okay, I'll be polite, because my mom told me how to be polite. I was like, I'll be polite. But she was accurate. Like, the stuff that she was saying was intensely specific.
So your father was a police officer, down to earth, laid back guy, but was not buying this. Mm-mm. And your mom defined as kind of spiritual. So she was all in, but there was nothing that was guiding you on this path.
My mom and my grandmother, I used to jokingly call them psychic junkies. Okay. Like, they couldn't get enough of the subject matter. They loved it. And my dad used to make fun of it. He used to just say, like, that's something that the ladies do.
You had no indication that you had that skill or talent or ability.
No, I mean, I used to hear stuff from my family like, oh, you've got such a vivid imagination. Now, after that reading, after going down my own path of learning about the subject matter, and the way that I explain it is I say, if you ever have a home invasion, if you've ever been robbed, the first thing that you want to do is put a better alarm system in, right? Yeah. So I kind of felt like that reading felt like a violation to me. I kind of felt like, whoa, this was a little invasive. No, I didn't really enjoy this. Like, I didn't walk out of there going like, this was really cool. I walked out of there going, I don't know if I like this. And if she could do that, maybe somebody else could do that. And I need to learn about this. I went to go learn about it to figure out, like, how do I put an alarm system in? How do I make sure like this doesn't happen again? As I was reading back then in 1985, everything that was written under the occult section of the public library, I was like, this isn't psychic. This is common sense. Like, we all do this. And then I started asking high school friends, like, haven't you seen your dead grandfather? And I remember one of my friends going, no. I'm like, you've never, ever like happened to see him? And he was like, no. Have you? And I was like, yeah.
Somewhere between 15 and 30, this becomes your thing.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. It became my thing pretty quickly. It became my thing within about 6 months of that. I became, I don't want to use the word obsessed, but I had a voracious appetite for knowledge. And I went through every book the public libraries had in my area. Then I started like buying books on the subject matter. I got involved with learning about tarot and the esoteric understanding of the human archetype and experience within tarot, the fool's journey. I started delving into like Buddhism and different spiritual ways of looking at life. It just felt like, oh, wow, like there's so much more than what I thought I had access to. I watched the projections that came out of readings with clients, cousins actually, happen relatively quickly. And then they would tell their friends, and then their friends' friends would tell friends. And that's how I started reading people. And then around 1987, the other side started connecting with me. And then in 1989, my mom passed. And when my mom passed, everything shifted. It was a very strong catalytic moment for needing to know where she's at. Would she still be able to connect with me? Would she see my kids? Like all of the, normal grief things kicked in.
You go on Larry King, and that kind of blew the doors off. And then you hosted Crossing Over with John Edward. It doesn't feel like you were ever one of those people who's seeking approval or seeking to convince people that this works. You were just doing it.
Once I was proving it to myself, client after client after client, I didn't need it externally. I was too busy doing it internally.
So for context, this is late 80s, early 90s, but you're doing this kind of every day. Like you're out there at a time when people weren't. And so you had to face a bunch of you. This guy's a fraud. He's not. It's like, what was that like?
I think I've always had a healthy understanding because I came from that place. So I never took it personally because I was that person. So I always reflected back on them coming from a place of, ignorance or not understanding, sometimes arrogance. And I think that there's a difference between skepticism and cynicism. Skepticism is something that I implore everybody to have specifically in 2025. We need to have skepticism. We want to be critical thinkers about everything in every field. And there's no reason not to be a seeker and an explorer. But being cynical stops progress. Being cynical stops us from being able to advance in any field. So I was never okay with cynicism. And I was also never okay with someone defining my personal intentions. That's the only place I ever had a problem. When people would say, well, he's doing this because of this, or he's doing this because of that. And I was like, no, you don't know me, so you don't have a right to say that. But I've always been respectful of someone coming from a skeptical standpoint.
Coming up next, how an FBI agent skeptic ended up working with him on multiple cases.
And Robert Hilland was an FBI agent at the time in that area, heard me on the radio and took it upon himself that he wanted to expose me as a fraud.
Little Noah, Dublin, Virginia, March 25th, 2015. The phone rang. John, thank God. As soon as I picked up, his words were spilling out. He was on fire.
Bob, you walked right over him.
What?
Bob, stop where you are right now. Turn around. Go back in the direction you came.
I turned around and started walking back to the tires. 5-year-old Noah had been missing for 3 days, and I was stumbling around in the dark.
You also were doing things people weren't aware of, and that's kind of where Chasing Evil, the newest book, comes in.
So part of the journey of development was I wound up doing a lot of radio. And I liked doing radio because I had a job at a hospital where I wanted to keep. My degree was working. I was working on a master's, to do that in healthcare administration. And I liked the fact that I could do what I do. People would know my name, but they wouldn't know what I looked like. So radio was my go-to when it came to like any type of promotion or media. And it was live and interactive, and nobody could accuse me of, being edited because it was live radio. So when I would do New York City radio, I had one station that I was on quite a bit. It was a very successful kind of segment that they would have. And Robert Hilland was an FBI agent at the time in that area, heard me on the radio and took it upon himself that he wanted to expose me as a fraud. So he came to me under the guise of a real case, trying to debunk what I do. So he was me to me, as you had pointed out earlier.
He was you to you, but he wasn't 15. He was an FBI agent who was coming trying to debunk you.
He had brought a real case, a specific case that we talk about, which is the overarching case in the book. Mm-hmm. He also went around to women in the office and said, can you give me something of yours, an article? And he put their stuff in evidence bags. along with the actual evidence bags of the case he brought me. When I took the the evidence bags that didn't belong to the case, and I moved them on the side of my desk and said, I don't know what these are, but these have nothing to do with this and your case. And then moving forward, I wound up giving him information on that case. I wound up giving him information about himself. And that got later validated with his parents, which gave instantaneous validation of what just took place. And then he had the same moment with me that I had when I had my first reading. So it was almost like a full cycle moment where I did to him what was done to me. And then from that, he had said, can you help me further? Is this something that I could utilize? And I kind of felt like I was like a new screwdriver in his toolbox. So I'm very clear. I did not work with the FBI.
Right.
I worked for a 3-letter organization called the BOB. I worked for Bob, and Bob happened to be an FBI agent. And it became a really interesting journey because for me, it wasn't something that I had an interest in doing because my dad, who was a cop, said to me, make sure you don't work with the police. Like, don't sully my name. Make sure you don't do that. So I jokingly say, I didn't work for the police. I worked with the FBI instead. You know,
So
I worked around it.
even as you were established and credible and doing all of these things, your father, as the cut and dry police officer, was like, okay, that's nice. Like, you do your thing, but don't cross into this field, and maintained that.
He never knew I did this in life. He passed in 2002, but he never knew that I was assisting in any shape, way, or form. The only time I ever got what I would say would be I'm going to take it as a compliment, is I was at Crossing Over, the TV show, and I went to check my email, and I got an email from him that, do you remember the psychic Miss Cleo had gotten arrested or something?
Absolutely. The accent and all.
Well, long story short, when she got arrested, he sent me a link to that article and said, it's people like this that make what you do look bad.
Coming up next, you'd think that solving cases with the FBI is incredibly impressive, but they still had to keep it a secret until now.
Bob came to me. I didn't seek this out. So when he asked for assistance, I said to him, yes, I'll help you, but keep my name off of stuff. And he said, no problem. I want to keep my job.
Hundreds of volunteers have been searching tirelessly, day and night.
Stop. He's right there. You just walked over him.
I started to backtrack. I had the phone in one hand, the flashlight in the other.
Stop. You're going the wrong way. You need to go back up the hill. They're telling me you need to go back up.
The Chasing Evil book, Shocking Crimes, Supernatural Forces, and FBI Agents Search for Hope and Justice, written with you, John Edward, and Bob, that you're talking about, former FBI agent. You guys together made some really significant steps in solving crime and serial killers and identifying additional information. Was it ever frustrating when you're getting this criticism or critique or the struggle for credibility, knowing that you're helping, like you're using that to really make a difference?
Yes, to answer your question directly. Were there a couple of moments where I was being attacked during the Crossing Over years, like ardently being attacked? Yes. Did I want to, like, in those moments be like, oh yeah, well, what about this?
Right.
And then I had to sit with what my intention was. My intention over the last 30 years was never to do the what about this, hey, look at me kind of vibe. It was more, I'm flexing and strengthening my ability in a direction that I don't want to do for clients, but yet I'm doing for myself, if that makes any sense. I want to be really clear. I have a great respect for law enforcement. I have a great respect for what they do. And it was out of that respect that I really never did put my energy there. Bob came to me. I didn't seek this out. So when he asked for assistance, I said to him, yes, I'll help you, but keep my name off of stuff. And he said, no problem. I want to keep my job. Somebody recently said to me, if that was your working relationship, why now? Like,
Right.
why do you want to talk about it now? And I will tell you, he's left the FBI. And when you read the book, when you read Chasing Evil and you see the trajectory of Bob the person and what the work in his life did with, to, and for him, And some of the sacrifices somebody like Bob makes in a job that never gets the credit, never gets the validation, never gets the voice. When he wanted to tell this story, I was like, sure, we'll do this.
How hard was it to do a book like this? I mean, because this FBI investigations, he has retired, but obviously some of the cases, they were FBI investigations. So I would imagine you had to have all sorts of hoops that you had to jump through.
I have to tell you, I don't know the exact words that he used that he had said this to me, but normally to get something vetted, I don't know, was like a month. Mm-hmm. And I think this book took like 9 months to get vetted, to get through. And it's been vetted.
Does this feel like you said you never really were seeking it, didn't really need the validation? Isn't it validating for the whole kind of industry that this can be used for good?
I hope so. I hope that people will perceive the subject matter different. I'm always going to err on the like bracing myself for impact moment of the attack that's going to come in and kind of anticipate like, well, if you can do this, how come you haven't worked on that case? If you can do this, then how come you haven't worked on that case? And that's why I tell people it's really not, I've never been public about this because it's not the direction of the work that I do. It's not something that it's not something that I'm interested in doing. I did it with and for Bob. He was so good at knowing how to interview me and get information out of me that I was like, if I'm going to do this, then I want it to go through him. So he's really been my medium for this.
Coming up next on The Pulse, many are bothered by skeptics. He actually appreciates them.
I think everybody who does this work should come at it with a skeptical mindset and a skeptical eye. It makes you better at what you do.
John was talking 100 miles a minute.
Go back up the hill and look for that Star Wars toy, the X-Wing fighter plane. Bob, the boy is there, I'm telling you.
I could hear the emotion in John's voice, and that was unlike him. He was usually clinical and composed when we worked together. Noah was different for him. He touched our hearts. Whatever horror befell him, his own father couldn't protect him. It was now up to John and me.
So that's one of the things that was interesting about the book. So he did not, in almost all circumstances, he didn't and couldn't provide you with information and ask you to interpret it.
He knew not to cross the line of giving me information because then that would color I would get a bias. Mm-hmm. I would have an absolute bias. So I have to, whenever I'm doing a reading, I have to completely trust what I'm seeing, hearing, and feeling. If I'm talking to somebody and you happen to say, if I'm reading for you and you go, oh, I really hope my grandpa Robbie comes through.
Right.
Now in my mind, I'm like, well, now you just told me that your grandpa's passed and you just told me his name's Robbie. So it's like, those are two things that now can't come up. So those become obstacles in the way of the process. So he knew that. So he knew not to say anything. And then he would give nothing as validation. Like he would be like, okay, I understand that. And then what about this? Okay, I don't understand that. Well, what about this?
It really is interesting that the skeptic evolves into what you do.
Being skeptical just means that you're looking for validation data and things to kind of give credibility. So that's the good. I think everybody who does this work should come at it with a skeptical mindset and a skeptical eye. It makes you better at what you do.
How do people get in touch and stay in touch?
You can go to johnedward.net. So there's no S on Edward. So johnedward.net. And the platform is called evolveplusTV.com. So evolveplusTV.com.
So to you, this almost sounds like a dumb question to ask somebody who does what you do. But when you hear use your voice for good, what does that phrase mean to you?
Using your voice for good by today's standards means to look at the litmus test of what's good for humanity. A lot of people are faced with choices and decisions about what to do, where to be, who to be with, and how to look. And you want to walk the path of what's good for your community and what's good for humanity. If anything goes against humanity, then you're on the wrong side of history.
Guys, thanks so much for watching this episode of The Pulse with psychic, medium, investigator, best-selling author John Edward. Honestly, it was fascinating to me. The book is an amazing read, and just the way his skills or talents play into helping solve crime. Whether you believe in it or not, it is an amazing read. informative. I enjoyed it, and I hope you did as well. You can hear the entire unedited interview by just downloading the Pulse with Bill Anderson podcast. All of our shows right there on demand. Again, I appreciate you spending some time with us, and I leave you today as I always do, reminding you whenever you can, use your voice for good and have a good one.